Greetings fellow Excel aficionado and data analysis fans. Welcome to this 1-hour session for the Excel Virtually Global event. Thank you for attending this session and to the Sun Product team for organizing this event. In this session, we will use some of the new functions of Excel 365 and discuss the opportunity to use ChatGPT. This session is mostly for accountants, auditors, and CFOs as well as business controllers. The general ledger is a document that is generally a great input for financial reports. My name is Vincent Lacomme. I'm a French chartered accountant, CPA, and auditor working in Paris. I'm also DA 100 certified by Microsoft. This is my third Excel Virtually Global event. I previously hosted sessions about Power Query for financial reporting in 2021 and Human Resources Reporting Dashboard with Power BI and Power Query in 2022 last year. Why did I choose this topic to talk to you today? As years go by, accountants, CFOs, business controllers, etc. have to handle more and more data in their day-to-day work. So I quickly was interested in Excel, Power BI, and Power Query and how to use them efficiently for our clients. My daily work often involves handling complex data files and finding ways to compute the relevant information. With tools like Excel, Power Query, and artificial intelligence, AI, I'm able to come up with more productive ways of solving data issues. Today, we will be focusing on working with a general ledger. General ledgers stand as the foundational pillar of precise accounting analysis, offering auditors, accountants, and CFOs a vital lens into a company's well-being. For this session, I brought a special guest star, newcomer ChatGPT and its advanced data analysis plugin. Our ingredients in this session will be Excel modern functions, Excel older functions, Power Query, ChatGPT, and maybe others. Who will win the Oscars of data analysis? You will know at the end of this session. This presentation will encompass 3 pivotal moments. Firstly, we will clean the general ledger. Then we will summarize the general ledger, and finally we will analyze the general ledger. Are you ready? Let's begin. Welcome to part 1 about cleaning the general ledger. Accountants, CFOs, and auditors generally have to deal with improperly formatted general ledger. This means handling Excel file or CSV files with empty columns, empty rows, headers that are not in the first row, subtotals, sub rows with the account number, etc. To work with data in Excel and most of the data analysis tools, you need a tabular format. What is a tabular format? It's a format where you have rows and columns and not empty rows. You have to make manual actions to clean up the general ledger. In this session, we will be working with an Excel file. This Excel file is a general ledger, and we're going to look at it and see what's wrong with this file. First, you have empty columns. You have empty rows at the top. You have empty rows or total rows here. The account number is only indicated at the beginning of each accounting entries. And what would be better is to have, for instance, here, this account being repeated here every time so we can make filters. And that's pretty much the issues. We could have had date problems. Here the dates are correctly formatted, so it's okay. In a standard case, we would have make all these corrections manually, deleting the rows, deleting the columns, etc., and adding the account numbers. We're not going to do that today. This slide explains what's wrong. There might be also account numbers that are not in a consistent format, meaning some account numbers are 8 digits and some account numbers are 10 digits. So here we can see an example between these two. Fortunately for us, there is a pattern. I mean, we always have the account number and ID at the beginning, and we always have the debit and the credit in a column. What are the solutions to work on this Excel file? As I said, you could do it manually with Excel functions to clean it up. Another way is to use Power Query, and I've already talked about this at the Excel Virtually Global 2021 session, where I used this precise general ledger as an example, and I showed how you could transform your data into something usable. This session can be watched on YouTube as a replay. You have the link here. But getting back to our solutions, Excel functions are very easy to use, and you don't need to know how to code. You need to know the basic functions, so it's pretty easy and flexible. But it's very slow and it requires manual actions. So generally you would have to repeat every of those actions every month or every year, depending on the rhythm of your file. So Excel functions have a low degree of automation, and this is why Power Query might be more handy to automate your data transformations. And Power Query is a low-code solution. You might use it even if you do not know how to use the M mashup code. A third solution is to use Python, which is a very interesting and flexible language. It's actually the second most used language in the world behind JavaScript. And Python is a great tool for data analysis, for data visualization, etc. And Python could very well transform your data so that you can use it properly. And what's interesting is that Python is coming to Excel. It's available currently for insiders users as a preview, and it should follow up for all users in a few months or years. I don't know the timeline. Another way for us to transform this data into something better is to use AI, and more specifically ChatGPT. I was talking about Python. ChatGPT actually works with Python when you use the advanced data analysis component. Before we watch a demo about ChatGPT, I'd like to say a few words about advanced data analysis, which used to be named Code Interpreter. This is a component of ChatGPT that is only included in the ChatGPT Plus service. It's in beta mode currently, and you have to pay $20 per month to use it. This component allows you to execute code and access to files uploaded by user. As a reminder, ChatGPT in its 3.5 basic version only can handle text as an input. When you use Code Interpreter or Advanced Data Analysis, you can upload an Excel file, a CSV file, and many other formats. It can output an Excel file or a CSV file, while the 3.5 version could only output text, and in some cases it could output code, but not a file. So let's watch a demo. I prepared this prompt in order to clean up my general ledger. I will tell ChatGPT to act as an Excel specialist and accountant. I will provide an Excel file of a general ledger from an accounting software, and I need to convert it to a tabular format in order to use the Excel functions, total, filters, sort, etc. This first part here is the introduction of my prompt, and then I will give the steps to ChatGPT. The steps will be to keep the existing columns, to add new column, to remove adding account number rows, to remove account totals or subtotals, etc. And at the end, I'm telling him to what I want to output. So what I want to output is a new Excel file. So I want it to be directly in an Excel file. And also, since ChatGPT can do it, I will ask him to provide me with VBA code to do these same actions. So it will be interesting to see if ChatGPT can do it. And also how to do it using Power Query. And finally, I will ask him how to do it using Excel functions. So this is a very deep prompt, but as you know, in ChatGPT, the longer the prompt, the better the answer. So let's see what he will answer. I have opened the ChatGPT web page, which is chat.openai.com. At the top, I have two options. The first one is GPT 3.5 and the second one GPT 4. As I said, you need to have a paid subscription to ChatGPT Plus. I will choose GPT 4 Advanced Data Analysis, and I can start typing my prompt. And I will add the attachment file here. So because of privacy issues, I would like to remind that you need to be very careful as to the data you will input. I have selected here a general ledger, which I have truncated. I only selected, I think, the 20 first rows because I do not need to give more to ChatGPT. Here is the file I've uploaded. I've deleted most of the GL. I have my GL file. And I have my prompt, which is kind of long, but explains what I need. I can click send message. And now ChatGPT is working, explaining what it's going to do. So here, let's go behind the scene for a second. We have a show work, and this show work is actually the code that ChatGPT used, which is Python. So we have a first part of what I asked, which is the Excel cleaned up file. Whenever it's in bold and underlined, it means that it's a link to a file. So let's see if it works. I'm going to download it. So here I have my general ledger, which is nearer a tabular format than it was before. There are still some things that need to be improved. First, the numbers are not consistent. The date formatting is year, month, day. Depending on your country and time zone, it might be better to have day, month, year, or month, day, year, etc. So you can ask ChatGPT to adapt it to your needs. And there are still empty columns here, which I don't need. The second answer is the VBA code. At the end, he asks me if I want to proceed with the two final steps, which are Power Query and Excel functions. So I will say yes. So as we can see here, Power Query, it generated the M code that I can copy and paste into Excel Power Query and use. And then the Excel functions is listing all the steps, so beginning to remove empty columns, add account number column with an if functions, using the sort filters, etc. Now we're gonna try to improve the Excel file that was generated. Let's open the file again. Yeah, unfortunately still useless columns, and the header, the first row is useless, etc. So we could work again, be more precise in the corrections. You can download this prompt on this link if you'd like to test it yourself. What I wanted to show you is that ChatGPT is very powerful. The prompt needed 5 minutes to be written, and he was able to make the corrections in the Excel file, which would have taken me 5 minutes or 10 minutes if I had done it manually. So it's a way to automate things. I'm able to have the VBA Power Query code, or I could even ask him to generate the Python code to automate this task. It's really extremely useful and very simple to use. Cleaning up the general ledger can be accomplished using many methods. We have seen the Excel functions, the Power Query method. You could have used Python to do it, and of course ChatGPT is able to do it, albeit some minor imperfections that could be worked out. How can you choose the best solution? Well, you have to choose the one depending on your skill set. And most of all, it depends on the complexity of your data. Let's say you find yourself having to work on data monthly or even weekly. Then automating using Python or Power Query seems vital. On the other end, if this is a one-shot case, meaning you have to deal with a file for once and you will never see it again for whatever reason, Excel functions or ChatGPT might be the fastest solution because the setup time is really low, while using Python or Power Query requires a bit of programming time at the beginning before it can be really used regularly. Our second part of this session is how to summarize a general ledger, converting a general ledger to a trial balance. This is a pretty common case where you want to change granularity analysis level between accounts to the accounting entries. We will therefore convert the general ledger to a trial balance. In other words, we will group the general ledger entries by account numbers. Again, there are many solutions to accomplish that. You could do it using a pivot table. You could use Power Query with the group by function. You could use VBA, which has a lot of functions, dictionaries, arrays, etc. You could use SQL or Python with group by. I will focus on one way which is even more simple and fast. It's Excel functions. Yes, you can do it with the modern Excel functions. So we will work on a general ledger file, which is here. It's a file which is properly formatted, except for the account number, which are not consistent. We have some accounts here with differing length, and the rest is pretty much good. We have a pretty neat general ledger. Our first job will be to find how to make the trial balance. So a trial balance consists basically in grouping by account numbers. With the modern Excel functions, there was a new function called unique that was created, and unique basically identifies the unique values, so you can start from a general ledger and generate a map of accounts. So let's see what this does. I'm gonna type unique and go back to my first sheet and select the account column. So it's better to select only the used cells without the header. And okay, here we go. We have the account without duplicates. So unique is very useful to eliminate duplicates, to find mapping charts of accounts, etc. Next, I need the account name. The account name is going to be computed using a basic X lookup functions from the account number. So lookup in A column, and what I want to output is B column. So X lookup A7 account number, from account number column output account name column. Enter, and here we go. I only need to duplicate my formulas and then balance. Again, no new functions here, only a sum if. So if this account number corresponds to that, I'm going to output the balance here. Okay, I will just check if the total is equal to 0. That's the case. So here we go. We have our trial balance. You might want to say, well, we could have done it with a pivot table or Power Query. There is something I haven't said which is interesting in this case. Suppose I were to add a new account number. Let's say I go back here and I add a row. I will add it here, 801, don't know, and I'm gonna tell him 25, 250. Okay, let's go back here. I haven't done anything and yet the row has appeared. Why? Because unique is a modern Excel function which is dynamic. What does dynamic means is that you have a direct link to the original source data. So whenever you change something here, let's say I change it to 601, it changes here as well. So this is very useful because obviously your source data can change. And if I had done it with Power Query, I would have to refresh the data. It might have taken a few seconds. Okay, it's really fast, but this functions, this method, I think is sometimes more appropriate. Now let's continue with a second example. As I said before, my account number length is variable. I have some accounts with different account names. So let's recopy here. This is my original trial balance. Now I would like to have the account numbers all with 10 digits or 8 digits. What I can do is add a left function. So left of unique of the account number. And I will ask him to select only the 8 digits. Okay, I forgot the parenthesis. So let's zoom in a bit here. So no, I have to select the right cells. Okay. This time the digits are consistent. Unfortunately, some of the digits are less than 8. Well, what I can do is concatenate unique with as many zeros at the end, and it will automatically shorten it to 8. And here we go. Now we have a consistent set of data. And of course, to finish with this, I only have to duplicate. But here's the issue. Now that I've changed the account length, Excel cannot find the account name nor the balance, because in the original source data, you always have the original account number. So what I strongly suggest is to use a specific additional column in your original data set here with account number. Let's say account number, and I will use equal left A2 and 0 up to 8 characters. And now I can refer to this column for all my future formulas. So here, instead of doing all of this, I only have to go in the K column. And I have to change here in the lookup array to K. And in the SUMIF function. So here is the result with the additional columns, and it's a pretty efficient way. And again, all is dynamic, so if I change the account numbers, if I add new accounts, they will automatically be updated here. Our third example will consist in sorting our trial balance, because general ledger might be in a random order or by dates. So what I'd like is to have the accounts here sorted by account number. To do that, we have a sort function. So again, I will work with the same functions than before. I will paste my unique function. Here I have all my trial balance, and to show you that it's not in the right order, I will create additional rows, random numbers, and I have to add them here as well. Okay, so let's go back to the trial balance sheet. Okay, here you can see that these accounts are not sorted out correctly. I will use the modern Excel function sort and ask him to sort by the first column of my table. Currently, I only have one table with one column, which is the account number. Enter, and now my accounts are sorted. So this is very easy to do, only an Excel function called sort, and you do not have to use the, as I would say, older Excel functions, which would require to activate the sort tool, to do it every time, not to forget to do it here. If you have a process to handle data, you need to set the formula, and it's done for every time. Our fourth example will be to enhance the trial balance with year period column. So what I want is to have basically the trial balance for the three first columns, and then to have the amount for 2022 in another column and 2023 in another column, and then check that it's okay. So again, we're going to start with this function to have the chart of accounts, then the account name here. All right. And then the balance. Right, now the amount for 2022 and 2023. There are many ways to do it. You could do it by adding a new column here with the year, which is the proper way, I believe, or you could do SUMIF superior to January 1st and inferior to December 31st, things like that. But I personally prefer the year system. So SUMIFs, we're actually going to start from this one. SUMIFs. We're going to sum the J column. We will keep the account number condition, and then we will add a second condition with the year. And now the year will be equal to the header title. So I will set it with $1 for the row. Let's see if this works. And now to 2023. Okay, I forgot to set here $1, and of course the other columns. All right, now I will check with this that I'm okay. All right, there we go. So as you can see, we only used unique, sort, and SUMIFs and XLOOKUP. Very easy functions when you know them, no difficulties, and you can do some really interesting enhancement to your trial balance for data analysis purpose. One more word, here the year, I've used a function to compute the year automatically here, which is transpose unique. So what I'm doing is computing the year in the date column. Then I'm using the unique functions to remove the duplicates. So I'm getting 2023. Let's see what this will give me if I copy this in another cell, like here. So it's giving me 2 rows, but here I needed to have it in columns. So I'm using another modern Excel function called transpose, which is dynamic and will again change it to column. And let me prove it to you that it's dynamic. If I were to change the date here to 2021, okay, a new column would appear here. So you could improve it by sorting it again with the sort function. So we have seen how to use the main basic functions of the modern Excel functions. They're very easy to use, and I believe that beginners in Excel can pretty quickly work with modern Excel functions. And these functions are really complementary to VBA or Power Query, because obviously in our demo here we could very well have done it with VBA or Power Query, but it would have required more programming time, more tryouts. Here we have the functions and they work immediately without errors. So it's really interesting and a great way to do it when you're a non-expert of VBA or Power Query. And as I said, modern Excel is flexible and dynamic, so you have something that can be amended, that can evolve in the time when you add some new rows, when you add some new columns, etc. So a very interesting way to work in Excel. But again, perhaps we could have done it with our guest star ChatGPT. And perhaps ChatGPT might be faster because it understands what you need to do. You do not have to find the relevant function in Excel or program anything. So let's see a quick demo with ChatGPT. I have determined a prompt to make all these operations. Well, actually only to generate the trial balance. Here is the prompt. You will act as an Excel specialist and accountant. I will provide you with an Excel file of a general ledger. I need you to generate a trial balance, keeping debit and credit columns and adding a balance column equal to the difference between debit and credit. The goal is to generate an Excel file of the trial balance, a text file of the trial balance, and also to write VBA code to do this in Excel. So again, I'm going to copy and paste my prompt in the GPT-4 Advanced Data Analysis window, and I will select the general ledger file. So okay, the spreadsheet is uploaded, the prompt is written, and I can click enter, and let's see what ChatGPT can do. So it's working, a lot of Python here, and we can see the output, which is pretty good. Of course, you might want to adapt the header titles if you want something more suited to your needs. And now it's working to generate the VBA code. And as you can see, the VBA code is pretty documented. You have comments, you have a structure with indents, so it's a pretty clean job. Okay, so now we have three outputs, the trial balance in Excel format. Okay, here it is. So once again, I've used a shortened data set because I do not want to input sensible data. Of course, it's a fake data set, but I prefer to do it that way. That's the trial balance. You have a trial balance in text format, which can be useful in some cases. So here it is. It looks the same as the Excel file, and you have VBA code to generate the trial balance. And again, it's provided into a TXT file. So it's pretty good and pretty efficient. ChatGPT has an ability to adapt to every kind of general ledger possible. So I believe it's going to be a really useful tool in the future in this instance or for a lot of other use cases, of course. So you can try to use the prompt here using this link. You can test it on your end with your files. It's a very interesting solution. In part 1, we saw how to clean up your general ledger. Then in part 2, we summarized the general ledger into a trial balance. And now we're going to analyze the general ledger with some basic examples on how to filter data for auditing purposes or reporting purposes. This example will be done using the modern Excel functions, which are very efficient in this case. You could very well have done it using Excel, Power Query, VBA, or Python. Let's start with our Excel function. So we will start with the general ledger file, which is here. This is a table, which means you can use it to call out for functions. So in this example, we will use the filter function, which is a modern Excel function, not to be confused with the legacy filters. The legacy filters are the one you use here, where you say, I want this date, etc. Filter is really a formula with three parameters. The first parameter is the range of data you want to filter, then the condition, and then the result in case of an empty result. This is a dynamic function which ensure that you have a direct link between your source data and the result of your formula. Our first example will be to find the accounting entries matching exactly with this account number. So equal filter, and then we will tell him the data source. So the data source is all this table. I do not need to use the header. I will say why just in a second. And then the second parameter is the condition. So the condition is that this column, the L column with the account number formatted, is equal to the account number I'm searching. So BSX. And we do not need the final parameter. And that's it. It returns the accounting entries matching this account. So if I were to change it, 902, okay, 9, let's say this one. All right, so it works, it's dynamic. Here you can format the date because by default it's not formatted. All right, so I said you do not need to use the header entry because I already prefer to add it here using a direct link to the table header. So I'm doing just this, selecting the entries, and Excel computes the right format. This small example shows you how you can filter per account number, which is very interesting. Unfortunately, if I forget one number or had too many numbers at the end, it will not work. So this is why there is a second example, where we will find partial account matches with Excel dynamic functions. This second example will work pretty much the same way. So we will filter. Of course, it will not work this way because we have to tell Excel that we want all accounts beginning with 90. In order to do that, we need to work with text. So we need to convert everything to text. First of all, B5 must be converted to text. So text 0. And then we have to tell him find the accounts starting with 90. So we will use the left function. It will shorten the account to their first two digits, left 2, equal to text B5. Left account number formatted 2 equal to text B5. Enter, and this works. We have all the accounts starting with 90. If I change it to 96, it works. To 97, it works. Now, if I change it to 96.1, it doesn't work because my left function is only set to 2. I will change it using len of account number in B5 here, in order to have a dynamic computation of the numbers. If I say enter, now it works. In this example, we use both new function with filter and legacy function like left or len or text. A third example is to find an amount by absolute amount. We will use the filter function again on our data source. We will filter based on the balance column, and we want to return equal to this. And that's it. Only I set the absolute amount, so I have to transform my original source column, balance, to abs. So absolute equals to B6. The S is not all right. And that's it. We have both debit and credit entries matching that amount. And if I say 145, it works as well. Our fourth example is to find amount higher than B6. So I will copy and paste my function here. I do not need the absolute condition here, and I will only say superior or equal to B6. And this works, and I can change it to 110, etc. Our fifth example is finding inconsistent amounts. In this case, we will find all negative expenses amounts. Expenses amounts are account numbers starting with 96. So I will begin with filtering like we did just before with account number starting by 96. So here there are. Now I will have to add a second condition to find the negative amounts. The filter function doesn't allow to have two conditions. There's no parameter for condition 2. I will have to use parentheses to concatenate my condition. So open parenthesis, close parenthesis, multiply by second condition. The second condition is that my balance column is negative. So here we go. Balance, so inferior to 0. And I click enter. Here it is. I have all the creditor amounts for the expenses account. I can also do it for 97, etc. And this is dynamic. But in this instance, we saw how to use two conditions. Our sixth example is finding accounting entries per their account names. For that, I will use the filter function again, and let's see this function in detail. So what I'm trying to do is find all the entry names that include this word loan. I said include, so it's a partial match. I do not want to have an exact match. To have this included, I will use the find function. The find function will return the position of this word. So if this word is included, it will return, for instance, 5, which is a number. If it is not included, it will return not applicable, NA. What I'm going to do, so first I have a find function, find B6 in an entry name column. Then I will use the isNumber function here to only select the entries that have a number instead of an NA. And then I will filter. The resulting is these entries. And as you can see, I can change it to loan payment, to loan interests, and the rows are automatically filtered with partial match. I can also do it with exact match. Our seventh example will be to find the top 5 amounts. I can use a modern Excel functions called large. Large is a way to find the threshold where you will find the top 5, top 10 values. So in this instance, B6 is 10. I'm saying in the balance column, find the threshold where we have the top 10 values. And he computed it 107,000. All I have to do is I'm going to filter again on the balance column. So balance, My condition will be that the balance is superior than this. So I have my top 10 here. I can make it a top 5, I can make it a top 25, etc. So very dynamic, very efficient. We have seen a few ways to benefit from the modern Excel functions. They're dynamic, to make some analysis on general ledger for auditing, for accounting, for reporting. Again, let's see if our guest star ChatGPT can do something along this line. I have prepared a prompt. We'll act as a chartered accountant and business advisor and ask ChatGPT to analyze a general ledger data. I explained to him how this work, and I want him to do 4 things. First, examine the revenue and expense trends, the cash flow patterns, and any significant fluctuations in the account balance. I want him to work on anomalies or irregularities, and I want a summary of the company's financial health. Finally, I want to offer recommendations on strategies the company could implement. I have provided the Excel sheet and the prompt, and let's see the result. First, we have some preliminary observations. It's telling me that the laddered column is entirely null. And then we start with the revenue and expenses trend with a small charts with the evolution in time and a few comments here. Pretty neat. We have a cash flow patterns, but unfortunately he did not know how to select the accounts that are for the cash flow. So we would need to add another prompt to tell him use the account number X to compute the cash flow patterns. He was able to find the significant fluctuation in account balances, potential anomalies, a transfer of $50,000 on one account on February 20, and finally some summary and recommendations with indications on the evolution of each amounts. So it's very interesting, and this is really a very basic example. You can do many more things. You could also ask ChatGPT to filter accounts, to create Excel files with an expense sheet, an income sheet, a tax sheet, etc. So you need to try to make all sorts of tests to use it and know what it's capable of doing. And again, you can download the prompt I used here if you'd like to. So after all these solutions, I hope I did not make you dizzy. In this session, I showcased a use case that is common for accountants, auditors, and CFOs. We used to work with Excel basic functions and do a lot of manual actions. There may be more sophisticated or efficient ways than the one I showed. I wanted to show you that a simple use of the Excel functions and the modern Excel functions can yield fantastic results. The modern Excel functions are very easy to use. Naturally, you can also use ChatGPT to automate tasks and produce similarly incredible results and complementary to Excel. I suggest using the best of both worlds without considering them as opponents. The ingredients are Excel, ChatGPT, Power BI, Power Apps, and many more. Create your own recipes. Identify what you really need if you think mastering all these tools is too much. In any case, ChatGPT should no longer be a guest, but your sidekick, or should I say your co-pilot. The art of prompt is key for relevant answers. Be mindful of the privacy issues. Harnessing these tools, you can also go the extra mile by creating data visualization from your general ledger data. We have shown basic graphs. There are no limits to what you can compute and show. Be creative and integrate your client's needs. Visual representations can highlight outliers or unusual trends that might require further investigations. These insights not only facilitate informed decision-making, but also contribute to strategic planning and forecasting efforts. Thank you for listening up to now. I hope you enjoyed this session and will be glad to answer your questions. Let's connect on LinkedIn or Twitter. Thank you, Liam, and the rest of the Some Product team for allowing me to host this session from France. This is Vincent Lacomme speaking. See you soon.